Hello, here's your mom friend Kathleen, and welcome to Wildly Rooted. Motherhood isn't about having it all figured out, it's about growth. Together, we're planting deep roots so we can feel calm, confident, and connected. In just 5 to 15 minutes, we'll breathe, reset, and explore tools to bring more peace, joy, and ease into our days. I don't have it all figured out, but I'm here with you, learning, growing, and rewriting motherhood together. Let's dive in. Hi, mamas. It's your mom friend Kathleen here. And are you ready to dive in today's journey? Today's topic is dear to my heart. It's screen time and children. So yes, we're taking a little bit pause of talking about mindset. I'm not talking about screen time. And let me just say that if you're someone who's all in on screen time and digital life, this episode might not be for you. I'm taking a critical look and a critical standpoint, not to shame or guilt anyone, but to get honest about what screens are doing to our connection with our kids and what that means for their development, their joy, and their resilience later on in life. This episode is about fighting for our kids' connection in a world that seems designed to pull them away from us. So, we're raising in our world today kids in a culture that's constantly pushing them to plug in. And it's exhausting. Everything from social media, YouTube, video games, and even many school platforms in schools using screens, and it is competing for their attention. And it's fast. And let's be honest, it's not just the kids, we're all in it. We're grown-ups, we're dealing with it, trying to figure it all out. And at the same time, we have to figure it out for our kids and think about what makes sense long term for us and our kids. There's this pressure to balance our family values with the digital world that surrounds us. And often that world out there is winning. So, before we dive into this connection part, let's take a look shortly what screens are doing to our kids' brain. Let's talk a bit about the science for a moment. When kids or adults engage with screens, it activates the dopamine the dopaminergic system in the brain. So it always hits the dopamine button. Boom, boom. That's the reward system, the one tied to motivation, pleasure, and habit formation. And screens, especially fast-paced content like TikTok or YouTube, where you can always see what's coming next, what can come next, what you can watch next, or other games. Or today actually video games, they're made to provide quick dopamine hits, which train the brain to seek constant stimulation. And over time, this is what researchers are now calling the dopamine loop. The brain craves more and faster of the same high stimulation input and struggles to find satisfaction in slower real life activities. So, the research shows, for example, the NIH and other studies have found that children who spend more than 2 hours a day on screens score lower on language and thinking tests. A 2018 study from the University of Alberta found that toddlers who had more screen time had delayed development in communication, problem solving, and social skills. Screens are linked to disrupted emotional regulation in kids. They begin to rely on external sources like games or likes for validation instead of building internal resilience or turning to the family. And something I have witnessed with my own eyes. When we have play dates and kids come over, I can easily see which of these kids spend a lot of time on the screen and which not. Then I notice when kids get used to screen time, they literally forget how to play. These kids come here, and in my house, there's this strict rule: when you have friends over, You play. There's really rare exception where they're allowed to play video games. But when it's kids that are used to always having screen time, they're like, what shall we do? The common question. It's actually hard to work with these kids and engage them in playful activities anymore. And the research is backing my experience up. There is a child development expert, Dr. Stuart Schenker, and he talks about how screens hijack self regulation and creativity, making it hard for kids to engage in imaginative or physically play. And that's only one part. That's the research what screens are doing to the brains of our kids. And then there's the other part that's almost more important to me, and that's the parent-child bond, which is by now, through screens, from my perspective, really challenged. We're, as the parents of our kids, are meant to be our kids' anchor. We are that secure attachment, and that helps our kids to develop their resilience, their self-worth, and their empathy. But right now, I truly feel there are two things who are challenging this connection very hard or very strong. A is the external distractions. The social media, influencer, peers, our kids are more and more pulled away from the core family system. Independence is being marked as detachment. Our kids are much more detached from the core family. And of course, then you have B, the internal distractions. We are parents, we're not immune for all this digitalization. We are often on screens ourselves. Now, babies actually learn about the world by watching our faces. Like, yes, babies learn about the world by watching our faces, but now they're actually literally competing against with a phone because we're parents, or many of the parents are constantly on their phone. And studies have shown that when a caregiver is frequently distracted by a device, it affects a baby's emotional cues and can lead to attachment insecurity. We're actually unintentionally sending the message, you're less important than what's on my screen. Isn't that scary? I find that truly scary, and I have noticed this. We've been spending some time in a daycare recently, and there are some really small kids, about 1.5 years of age, running around and playing imaginary play, having a smartphone in their hand. And I just looked, at the people who work there, and they were like, "Yeah, that parent is a lot on the phone." And just imagine you being that child and you competing, not with your parents talking to another human being, but you competing with an electrical device. It's it's scary. And by all means, don't get me wrong, there is a place for all these things out there. There's a lot of good that's coming out of digitalization and possibilities. You can listen to this podcast right now. I can record this podcast easily from home. There's so much good as long as we're conscious and aware how we're using it and the role it plays, particular in the bond with our children. And yeah, let's talk about the real harm for kids, more than just the distraction from it. And this is just a really short list. If screen time is not checked by the parents or somehow controlled, or you know what it's doing, of course, the first thing that comes to your mind, and I think we know all about that this is happening, it's addiction. And we really need to think that the brain's child is not fully developed until the mid-20s. So if it's addictive to us as grown-ups with a full grown brain, then our child grows up in the time of their brain developing with an addiction. And that is, I don't even have a word what it is. But studies show some kids develop screen dependency that mimics behavioral addiction. That's a research done from UCLA in 2020. Of course, we can talk about the posture and the physical health. If you're a lot on screens, you move less, you're more slouching because, long hours on screens are linked to neck pain. Of course, obesity and vision problems. You're not yeah, you're not slouching on a couch like in perfect posture and you're looking down. Um, your posture and physically health is decreasing. Poor sleep, particularly if you're someone who have the screens on also shortly before bedtime. Blue light disrupts melatonin production, making it harder to fall asleep, and your quality of sleep is decreasing. So even our kids start to have early onward sleep issues when they have their screens in their rooms and let's say watch screens, iPad or whatever, just before bedtime. Underdeveloped social skills, it's another issue. Kids who interact more with screens than people may struggle with empathy, conflict resolution, and emotional intelligence. And underdeveloped executive functioning. Especially in younger kids, heavy screen use is associated with delayed impulse control, attention span, and decisions making. And that's a Harvard research done in 2019. So So this is why I believe boundaries are around screen time really, really important. How they look for each family is a completely different topic. And can it be convenient to use screens at time because we parents have to do something or need a break? Of course it is. But also know that what we're talking about here, it's easy for me to say these things into a podcast for you to listen. It's sometimes much harder to do it every day and be always aware. And this is a global concern. This is not just one place, or this is a global concern. This is happening everywhere. Organizations like the World Health Organization and UNICEF also emphasize the need for limits. And in general, what the recommendation are, no screens for children under 2. And I have witnessed this now with my 3 kids, particular, not the first one, but the 2 younger ones. Of course, they are exposed earlier to screens. They have an older sibling. Mm, Kids per se, if not learned, they're not interested in screens. I have now one child under the age of 3, and if we watch a family movie or whatever, my youngest one won't bother. Like, there is no interest whatsoever on the screen. So I actually think, particular with these really young children, we're teaching our children to spend time in front of a screen. Another general recommendation is a maximum of 1 hour of high quality program for children aged 2 to 5 and under teenager years, maximum 2 hours a day. And consistent limits for school aged kids with priority given to real world play, family connection, and sleep. And that I think is really, really important, that we have this real world play, family connection, even playing with friends outside, and sleep. If you see that you have issues in any of these areas, also have a look at screens. They may play a role on this. And boundaries aren't about control, they're about protection and space. Space for creativity, connection, movement, and emotional growth. I truly believe if we're role modeling similar behaviors, we're setting our kids up for a better future. How can you incorporate this space of creativity, connection, and movement? Is, for example, eating together as a family, doing outdoor walks without a phone, having screen-free rooms or hours. And these small things create safety and presence, and kids learn from early onwards to set boundaries so that they can continue when they're grown up. But let's be real. The struggle is real for parents too, for all of us. I get it. The culture is not on our side. These things are pushed to us. I hear it all the time, and I'm sure you do too. But all my friends have it. I'm the only one without the phone. It's just one game. And as parents, we're often burned out and ourselves digitally distracted. So setting boundaries can become really hard when we're actually running on empty because we're constantly like our brains are so busy constantly consuming. We used to have space and time of nothingness and stillness. Like let's say, maybe a silly example, but let's say you waiting at a till to in a supermarket. By now, everyone is always on the phone. As soon as there's a little moment of silence and stillness where we can go inward and fill our cups, we're distracting ourselves. It's so easy. But of course, that means that we're starting to be running on empty, and then setting boundaries can be really, really hard. And this is not about sheltering our kids, setting clear boundaries. It's about slowing the pace so that they have time to grow into themselves before the world tells them who to be. And I find that really, really important. Let's give our kids the space, the time, the connection, and security to figure out who they are and teach them self-worthiness and resilience. And that shouldn't come from a screen. So, let's get a little bit practical here. How we can fight for connection without losing our mind. And this is what it's all about. Like, how can we bring more connection into our lives? Set clear, age-appropriate screen time limits without any guilt. You feel guilty, your kids feel it, and they're gonna push you. You don't stick to your limits, they're going to push their boundaries again. But actually, I find once you're very clear, and maybe that takes a couple of days or even weeks, but if you're clear and they know their limits, they stop asking. I can see that with me in wintertime. We're using more screens because it's really dark and cold outside. And I noticed when we use a bit more screen, they ask me much more often if they're allowed to use screens. But in the summertime, when we're like really off the screens most of the time, they don't even ask anymore. And the same for my oldest. Most of his friends are having phones, and most of them as well, smartphones. I think there's one who has a, so to say, dummy phone. And I told my oldest child that he doesn't even need to bother to ask about a smartphone. It He won't get it from us. So let's be really clear. And this might change as we go along. We still have some years before it probably gets really hard. But we have discussed it. He knows how strongly we parents feel. And he has stopped actually asking. And that line, like all my friends have it just doesn't work. And I think he's okay with it. I don't feel like there's issues. Uh, I'm a big fan of modeling screen-free behavior, which means like, eat a meal without screens. I think dinner tables should be without a TV on. There shouldn't be phones. Just you and your family. Go outside. Be with your kids and be with them without having a phone, without nonstop taking photos. Just be with them. Having screen-free zones, like the dinner table or like bedrooms. We have actually a drawer where all our screens come into in the night because in the bedroom, no screens for many, many different reasons. Create rhythms. A weekly no tech afternoon, a tech sabbatical, screen-free weekends, or even half a day, whatever it is, have a rhythm so that kids know and there are breaks in it. Like for me personally, it's really important to have minimum 1 day a week where there's absolutely no screen for the children. And now we're talking more in the winter because if I'm thinking about most of our days are screen free, but I was like in times when we used more screen, it was like minimum having 1 or 2 days without any screen. I feel that is so, so important for kids to really, yeah, balance and ground themselves. Don't film everything. Not every moment has to be documented. We're making millions of photos. I don't know whoever is gonna watch them again, and not everything needs to go out on social media neither. Keep the devices in one shared spot. So, not the kids' bedroom. We actually have all our devices, also mine and my husband's one, in one spot, and that's it. And talk about media, not in fear, not with just going straight in with no, but with an awareness, openness, teach critical thinking, find solutions together, and figure it out together. We had a discussion. Of course, you have when you have siblings. The older one is allowed something, then the next one wants to, and so on. So we constantly have discussions about what is okay, how much is okay, how much do we lean into when other friends are doing it, and where are we saying no to? And and we have situation where my oldest child came and said like, "Oh, I would really like to test this video game. All of my friends are playing it." And then we actually sat down and, we researched and learned a little bit about it. And then we decided how we want to approach this topic and if that video game was okay. And we actually agreed we're gonna try it. Funnily enough, the video game didn't stick anyway, but to have that openness. And I think in this whole conversation, the most important part is to have that awareness. We're too young into this, how I show in this digital age. We now start having research about consequences, but we also know how many good things come out of it, right? And now it's just to navigate this whole journey. And I'm in the same boat as you. I haven't figured it out. I may change my tone at some stage slightly, but I do think bringing that awareness in and creating the space so we can truly still connect with our children and give our children that groundedness and that resilience for later is definitely very, very important. And this is also where I really would like to finish it off. Let you be the safest place for your children as long as possible. When they're teenagers, that shifts anyway, and there's only that much you can do. But for younger children, let us be the safe place and not the screen. Emotionally, physically, and spiritually. Because that's what really will protect them. Not a bubble, but deep anchoring to us, to you, Mama, because you've got it. So, here's my question for you today. How are you fighting for connection in your home? Do you have any struggles? Send me a message, share this episode, or start a conversation with another mom friend about this topic because we have to talk about it. To stay in silent, that is so important. We're not helping anyone. And with that, I will finish off today's episode. This is a topic really dear to my heart. To hopefully not fight, but most likely all of us to some extent, fighting for the connection at home with our kids. But we can do it. You can do it. I can do it. And we can do it together. With love from one wildly rooted mama to another. Keep growing and glowing together. And if today's episode resonated with you, make sure to hit follow and leave a review. It helps more moms like you find this podcast. And if you want more support, head over to my webpage www.kathleenlackner.com for free resources and connection.